The Northwest Product Stewardship Council is a coalition of state and local governments across Washington and Oregon. Our mission is to work together and with other governments, businesses, and nonprofit groups to integrate product stewardship or producer responsibility principles into the policy and economic structures of the Pacific Northwest. Before I begin, I'd like to introduce two products to you, products that you'll recognize and that I think you'll view differently after seeing the rest of this presentation. The first is the flat-screen high-definition TV. Most people know that this device is spurring a sales boom across the country. It was the single most purchased device in the 2007 holiday season. The second is the compact fluorescent light bulb, or CFL. CFLs use a quarter of the energy of an incandescent bulb, last many times longer, and have become the answer for what you can do to combat global warming. These products are both part of our everyday lives, and their numbers in the last few years have increased dramatically. When they become waste, they pose some serious problems, and that's what we'll be discussing today. To fully understand the waste issue, we have to start in the past and look at how our waste has changed. Managing garbage only became a municipal responsibility 100 years ago, when our increasing population, particularly in cities, was creating a public health problem. It wasn't just about getting rid of trash, but protecting public health as well. But even so, garbage was much simpler then. There are three kinds of garbage: mineral waste, matter like coal ash and ceramics; food and yard waste, things that are grown; and product waste, things that are made, manufactured goods. And over time, the makeup of waste managed by local government has shifted. When local governments assumed responsibility for garbage a century ago, people threw out mostly coal ash that they used for heating and cooking. The rest was mostly food, with a small amount of simple manufactured products like paper and glass. 60 years later, the coal ash is gone, but it has been almost completely displaced by food scraps and yard trimmings, and by product waste, things we buy and their packaging. And by the year 2000, product waste made up 75% of waste disposed. So not only are people throwing away more than they did 100 years ago, what they are throwing away is much different. In fact, in just the last 40 years, what we throw out has changed significantly, from a fairly even mix of food and yard trimmings and product discards to a lopsided product-heavy mix. The total of mineral, food scraps, and yard trimmings has remained relatively flat, but product waste has skyrocketed, and as a result, the total has skyrocketed as well. If we think about it, this isn't so surprising. Our lives today are very different than people's lives 40 years ago, especially in terms of all the products we buy, use, and throw away all the time. One of the most powerful modern examples is cell phones. There are more than 1 billion cell phones in existence today. These pictures represent 426,000 cell phones, which is the number that is discarded in the U.S. not every year, or every month, or even every week, but every day. Now, not all of these phones end up in the landfill, but the sheer volume of our waste is pretty remarkable. The problem is that cell phones and other products are designed for disposal. This shift to designing for obsolescence and disposal means things aren't designed to last, but instead are designed to run out, be tossed away and replaced with no regard to the consequences to local communities, the environment, or public health. They are designed to become waste. Many of the items we use up and toss out contain toxic material or are hard to recycle, things like rechargeable batteries, which contain lead, cadmium, and other toxic materials. Computer equipment, from motherboards to monitors to laptops and iPods. Fluorescent lighting, not just the new CFL bulbs, but linear tubes as well, contain mercury. We're certainly all familiar with these. Not only are we buying tap water for $1 a bottle, but we're tossing the bottles in the trash as well. We buy huge quantities of paint, and we have few places to take it when we have unwanted leftovers. More and more products now come with plastic packaging. Imagine this single container multiplied by 10 million each day, and you can see the challenge that it brings. Finally, there are concerns beyond everyday consumer products. Leftover medicines are increasingly ending up in our landfills and our water supplies. There are also serious concerns about abuse, poisonings, and crimes that result from the massive volume of unused or unwanted drugs. Here's a lighthearted look at this serious problem. A recent study by the U.S. Geological Survey found pharmaceuticals in 80% of the streams they tested. Half of these streams contain 7 or more of these chemicals. Now, there is good news, sort of. People are trying. This example from Oregon shows that people are recycling more than ever before. But the amount that we are landfilling also keeps growing. Recycling is up, but so is the total amount of waste. And the trend is similar in Washington. Recycling has gone up, but so has the amount of waste. And all of us are part of this problem. We've been enjoying all these consumer products that make our lives easier or more fun without thinking enough about where they're going when we're done with them. The cause of this problem is not just our individual behavior, but the system in which we all operate. Here's how our waste management system operates today. A product is manufactured and delivered to retailers across the country. We buy the product from the store and use it, but we usually end up tossing it pretty quickly. We dispose of it, maybe as garbage or maybe as recycling, but we end up paying for it through our garbage rates or through taxes. And then this stuff becomes the local government's problem. Government can try to recycle things further, and it can landfill or burn the rest. This system includes no incentives for better design, and it puts all the responsibility on the local government and the ratepayers. The manufacturers who designed and marketed the products are not part of the picture at all on the waste side of the cycle. But there's a new, better way to manage product waste that is starting to take shape in the U.S. and other countries around the world. In this new system, products are made and delivered to stores where we buy them. No change there. But it changes when we're done using the products. In the new system, the product producers are responsible for creating take-back programs for their products when they reach end of life. The recycling of these products is funded by the producer. It becomes a cost of doing business, just like their advertising, manufacturing, distribution, and other business costs. The producer that makes the product contracts with a stewardship organization to manage the take-back program, and people return their products when they're done using them. This creates a free market incentive throughout the whole process to make products that are more recyclable, easier to return and reuse, and that encourages customer participation in the recycling programs. This producer responsibility model is being implemented for select products in Canada, Europe, Asia, and other parts of the world, including here in Washington and Oregon. And it is this type of approach that will help us get a handle on our waste problem. Now, think about the old system, and imagine how it applies to the 2 products we talked about at the beginning of this presentation. Let's look at fluorescent lighting products first. Compact fluorescent lights contain mercury. So do these traditional fluorescent tubes. We use them in commercial or office space and also in homes. Millions and millions of these lights are used and disposed of each year. And because they contain mercury, making sure they are properly recycled and don't end up in landfills is critical. Mercury is a known neurotoxin in even tiny amounts. We worry about it getting into our bodies and building up in our environment. In 2003, only 2% of residential fluorescents were recycled in the U.S. That's because, at least in part, there are so few places for consumers to recycle these products. And if we look toward 2010 and assume that usage rates will double as anticipated, we'll have 445 million household fluorescent lights that can be broken in our garbage cans, trucks, and landfills, mercury and all. This is where many of them end up. Now think about this. Walmart set a goal to sell 100 million CFLs in 2007. Retailers like Home Depot gave them away on Earth Day. Utilities across the country are offering rebates to consumers who buy them. The growth in residential fluorescent use has exploded, and all those bulbs will eventually need to be properly recycled, and there are frightfully few places for consumers to take them when they burn out. Local government can't afford to provide this service with its current resources. And now for TVs. TVs contain lead, cadmium, mercury, flame retardants, and other toxic materials that need to be managed properly. This is what could happen to old TVs and computers without a convenient way for people to recycle them responsibly. And remember, TVs and fluorescent light bulbs are just 2 products that present disposal problems. There's batteries, paint, pharmaceuticals, all of which also contain toxic ingredients, plastic packaging, a multitude of other electronic products like Game Boys and iPods. The list of products is long, but many states are already moving toward a better approach. Washington was one of the first places to act. The Take It Back network, created by local governments in partnership with large and small retailers, charities, and green groups, demonstrated that retailers and other businesses can provide take-back services that are much more convenient than the few locations local governments can afford to provide. And by showing stakeholders that take-back can work, this program was instrumental in the passage of the first full producer responsibility law for electronic products in the U.S. This real and working program developed a broad coalition of support, which is key to implementing these programs. Here in the Northwest, Oregon and Washington were among the first states to adopt producer responsibility legislation for electronic product waste. Under these laws, the government provides oversight and enforcement, but the electronics manufacturers must fund the collection and recycling of their TVs, computers, and monitors. Legislatures across the country are passing laws to deal with electronic waste. There's been a lot of momentum in the last few years. In 2006, Washington passed the first full producer responsibility law. Oregon followed in 2007, and more states are currently considering electronic waste bills. And the media are paying attention. Consumers are reading about producer responsibility. They're aware of it, and they're beginning to expect these kinds of programs from the companies they buy from. Support for the producer responsibility idea is growing within the business community. Some manufacturers, like these, are already implementing policies and programs that have producer responsibility components. Retailers are also implementing take-back programs, some of them funded by product producers. And taxpayer groups support this idea because it relies on the market, not tax dollars or solid waste fees, to solve the problem. And there is still a role for government. Legislation is needed to provide manufacturers the level playing field they want. It won't be fair if some manufacturers step up while others don't. These programs need legislated standards, transparency, and accountability to achieve desired results. So, like with many issues, government shouldn't do everything, but it should do something. And here's why. Take-back programs, like this one that collects fluorescent bulbs and tubes at a local retail chain, have been remarkably successful. They work, but they are too few and far between. One of the best things government can do is require a program provided by manufacturers that retailers can offer their customers, and the market will respond. I hope this heightens your interest in product stewardship. We need your ideas, and we need your input. And we think your organization or company or agency can help us solidify the coalition that is calling for action. And we have 3 specific requests for you to consider. The first is that we invite you to join the Northwest Product Stewardship Council as an associate and help us speak with a unified voice here in the Northwest. There is power in numbers. The second is to support local resolutions, ordinances, and implementation plans and policies that are based on the producer responsibility approach, such as take-back programs for products purchased by local governments. We encourage you to use the model plans and policies on our website as a way to jumpstart this process in your community. Third, add producer responsibility to whatever programs you're supporting at your state capital. Thank you for your time and attention, and I hope you'll contact us if you have any questions or suggestions on how to move this effort forward.